I would say that my modern lifestyle is quite different from the traditional lifestyle of, say, my grandmother, especially as a young woman. Nowadays, most young women where I come from get a good education and go out to work, whereas in the past, in my grandmother's generation, that didn't happen so much. My grandmother left school when she was young and married my grandfather. She never went out to work, although she used to earn money by sewing and making suits for people. She dedicated her life to looking after everybody: her parents, her aunt, her children, her grandchildren. She cooked and kept the house clean. She would get up early and go down to the market to buy fresh fruit and vegetables from the local farmers, freshly caught fish and seafood from the fishermen. We still have a market that sells local produce. I suppose that tradition is still quite strong, but it's much smaller than it used to be. And people do most of their shopping in the supermarket, so it's much more difficult for the local fishermen and the farmers to make money. Their lifestyle is disappearing, and we only have a small window of opportunity to save it. A lot of farmers are now choosing to run agritourism businesses instead, essentially providing holidays on the farm, which is something that didn't exist before. Another tradition that is under threat is home cooking. My grandmother made homemade pasta and bread every day. She would spend hours preparing meals for the family. She lived a simple life. Nowadays, I think the expectations of young people are very different. We don't have so much time to spend at home, so a lot of the traditional skills of cooking and making things at home have been lost. These days, it seems like nobody has time for those lengthy recipes. We use a machine or we buy food that is ready-made and put it in the microwave. So I would say that this is another tradition which is in danger of disappearing. Also, when something breaks, we throw it away and buy a replacement. But I remember my grandfather was always repairing things and making them work again. Our modern-day lifestyle is much more focused on consumerism than in the past. Perhaps it's time to make a change.
Right, so next on the agenda is Active Week. Abe sent through a list of ideas, but I've actually got another option I'd like to discuss. How does everyone feel about putting on some dance classes in the town square? It's active and it doesn't need to be competitive, so everyone can join in.
Yeah, that's a nice idea, Bruna. And I think we all agree that we need to find an activity that everyone can do. But I just don't know if dancing is popular enough. We want to get as many people involved as possible. Remember when we did the fun run a couple of years ago? People absolutely loved that.
Good point. So what does everyone think of that idea? About doing a fun run again?
Sounds good to me.
Yeah, the fun run was good, but I think we should try and do something different every year, which is why dance classes are such a great idea. We've never done them before.
That's a good point, Penny.
OK, thanks for the input, everyone. So, we all agree that we want something everyone can do, and I think we all want the biggest attendance possible, but Penny is worried about doing something we've done before. So, what's the solution?
Well, perhaps we could try and do both. Have 2 events instead of 1 this year. That way, if you're not interested in dance classes, you can do the fun run.
Would that work, Bruna?
Abe did say we should try and choose 1 activity, but I can suggest 2 and see what he says.
OK, great. Thanks, Bruna.
Rob, what do you do to help you drop off?
Well, I used to use this sleep tracker. In fact, I got a bit obsessed with it. I was told exactly how much deep sleep I was getting, when I was awake, and what my total hours sleep was. I'd check it every morning, and I reckon I got less sleep because I was so concerned about whether or not I was getting enough of the right kind. You can't change things, so it's all a bit pointless. My advice is to forget the tracker and focus on techniques for chilling out. It worked for me.
Thanks, Rob. Next on the line is Jenna from Birmingham. Jenna, what works for you?
I've been an insomniac since I finished university. I think it started with getting all anxious. I kept thinking, what will I be doing this time next year? Will I have found a job? That kind of thing. I'd be so exhausted that I'd need naps during the day, and then the whole vicious circle started again once I got into bed. So, I did a bit of research and discovered an article that said you should stop thinking of yourself as a bad sleeper. I guess it's some kind of reverse psychology. Anyway, I started saying more positive things to myself. It took practice to get anywhere near believing it, but eventually it sank in, and now I sleep much better.
Great advice, Jenna. I'm sure some of our listeners can relate to that. OK, now let's talk to Alvaro. Alvaro, good morning. What do you do to tackle insomnia?
Okay, well, this one might sound a bit weird, but I read about it online.
Go on.
Nuts. I mean, eating nuts. They make you sleepy. I don't mean right before you go to bed, but just eating them on a regular basis. They've got loads of nutrients in them that are associated with sleep, apparently. And it's been recognized that they do something to brainwave frequencies, whatever that means. Anyway, it helps me. The ones that work best are peanuts.
Oh, very interesting. Thank you. We've just got time for one last call. Sonia from Edinburgh. Sonia, what's your tip?
I stare into the darkness when I'm in bed, rather than shutting my eyes and willing myself to go to sleep. Levels of the sleep hormone are increased that way, apparently. It kind of works, weirdly. I also heard that you should try to stay awake as long as you can if you're having problems dropping off. It has some sort of opposite effect. I've not tried that yet, though.
OK, thanks, Sonia. Well, that's about it for today's show.
So, have you ever done micro-hit training?
Is that the one where you push yourself really hard for like 3 minutes?
Yeah, that's right. It sounds ridiculously difficult. Sounds like too much effort to me.
I know what you mean, but it's supposed to be really good for you. And the best thing is, it doesn't take very long.
Well, that's true.
The other thing I was reading about was Everesting. Have you ever heard of that?
No. What's that? Climbing Everest?
Actually, it's cycling. You cycle up a hill and back down again until you've cycled a distance the height of Mount Everest, nearly 9 kilometers. It's not that far, but you do it in one go. I don't think that'd be too hard.
I completely disagree. You'd get tired quickly going uphill, I think. You're not an experienced cyclist.
I see your point, but I'd soon get fitter.
That's a fair point.
On the other hand, I could probably do with finding something more relaxing and low impact.
I couldn't agree more. You're under so much pressure at work. How about yoga lattes? It's a combination of yoga and Pilates. You'd increase your strength and de-stress at the same time.
That's a good point. And I could do it from home, online. Anyway, what about you? You're more into walking, right?
I was, but I've got really into this virtual training app, and I've started running. I love it.
Antonia.
As with most things in life, I started small. Not long after I bought this flat, I suddenly decided that the cabinet in the kitchen was ugly. It was modern and beige, and I couldn't stand it. A few days later, I found this absolutely gorgeous old wooden cabinet from the 1920s in a second-hand shop. I pulled out the original cabinet and replaced it with the one I found. And then everything looked wrong. I also discovered that the original fireplace and chimney were covered up, and underneath there were these lovely old red bricks. The cover had to come off. Then the paintwork looked just awful, and so it went on. Now I've got a lovely home-style kitchen. I'm really satisfied with that. But I wasn't at all satisfied with the layout of the dining room and the sitting room. They were two very small rooms, and I thought, just imagine, knock down the dividing wall and I could have this lovely open living space. So one weekend I got busy and the wall came down. I've still got some work to do there. Then there's the bedroom. I haven't had time yet, and the bathroom needs major attention. Okay, I admit it, I'm addicted to renovation. I can't help myself. I love doing these things myself. Getting it done by a professional isn't nearly as much fun. But hey, there are lots of worse things to be addicted to, and my flat's looking better and better with every day.
Rob.
You see, under our house, there was a kind of cellar and a garage, and there was also a small passage between the two. They're the kind of places where we keep things we no longer use. But I suddenly had this great idea. What if I knocked down a few walls and made the cellar and the garage one big area, a kind of basement that the kids could use as their space? I got a friend of mine who's an engineer to have a look and make sure it was possible. I mean, I didn't want the house to fall down. And he said, sure, no problem. And I've helped a lot of friends and family do this kind of thing in the past. Like, I've got a pretty good idea about what to do. So, I had this great weekend where I knocked down the walls. I loved that. You can really see the potential immediately. Problem is, once you knock something down, you sort of have to build a few things in their place, so it doesn't look like a work site. Well, things have been busy at work, and at weekends there are lots of things to do with the kids, football matches and stuff like that. I mean, I fully intend to finish it all off. That's what I keep promising my wife. But she thinks that I've got a commitment problem. You know, that I'm not committed to finishing off the renovation. Maybe she's right. But these things aren't as easy as they look. I suppose I could have it done by a professional, but that's expensive. I just say that it's a work in progress. It'll get there, eventually.
Kamal.
I think it's a really bad idea. What do we need a shopping centre for? I mean, we've got a local shop, and that sells quite a good range of things. Anything you need in an emergency. There's a supermarket only about 5 kilometres away, and it's so easy to get there by bus. A shopping centre's going to ruin this neighbourhood. Why can't they create a nice green living space instead?
Susie.
I think it's great. It's going to be really convenient to have plenty of shops nearby. If I have to do anything like, I don't know, go to the supermarket or get my hair cut or something, I have to go into town and it takes such a long time in the traffic. Can't wait for them to build a shopping centre. It's exciting.
Carol.
Well, I am looking forward to having a range of shops nearby. There aren't enough in this part of town, but I know this will change the neighbourhood. It'll make it a lot busier and noisier, and there'll be so much traffic. But I suppose that's the price you pay for convenience. Duncan.
The idea of a shopping centre doesn't particularly bother me, but I guess there'll be a large number of the same old shops. Very boring. Everything's part of a chain these days. I wouldn't mind so much if they had a few more interesting shops in the centre. You know, something like an independent music shop or something. But I know that won't happen.
Miles.
Well, it's about time. That local shop we have is useless. They never order enough of anything, and they're always running out of milk and bread and basic things like that. But a new supermarket and lots of shops, that's progress. It'll be great.
Marion.
It's going to completely change the community. I mean, a number of families live in this part of town, and we have young children. Apart from the traffic, we'll have so many people passing through our streets. I really don't know how safe it'll be to live here. It's just... Well, I'm thinking about my children. I want them to be safe.
Hi, Sam. Sorry I'm late.
That's okay, Julie. Everything okay?
Yeah, just the usual. Couldn't find a parking space. There just aren't enough around here.
Yeah, I know.
I'd have used public transport, but it probably would have taken even longer. The buses from where I work take such a long time to get into the centre. There's so much traffic congestion along the roads there.
Yeah, I suppose I'm lucky I live so close to the centre. But sometimes I do get a bit fed up with that, to be honest.
Really?
Yeah, well, I think the quality of life where you live is probably better. There's so much air pollution here in the centre, and then all the traffic congestion. Well, you know about that.
Yes, I certainly do.
Sometimes I think it would be nice to live in a big residential area like you do, instead of in the centre. In a nice detached house instead of my flat.
Well, there are definitely advantages. I can take the underground to the centre from where I live, and it's quite quick and convenient.
Yeah, exactly.
But there's not much for local residents, really. I mean, there are just flats and houses where I live, and a few supermarkets. No theatres, no cinemas. You've got all the entertainment you could want right on your doorstep.
Yeah, I know. I'm lucky in a lot of ways. And if I want to get something done, it's normally quite easy. I don't have to travel too far.
Yeah, and to be honest, I'm not sure if the air quality is much better where I live than in the centre. I mean, it's still the same city, isn't it?
Maybe, but at least you've got a bit of greenery to help. I'm sure that sucks in some of the pollution. In the centre, there's what, 1 park?
2?
Oh, yeah, 2. You see, I never go to the parks in the centre. They're not very nice, are they? There are people there that I don't really feel comfortable sitting next to on a bench.
No, I agree. We've got some nice parks where I live. But you've got your terrace, haven't you? You've got some plants and flowers out there.
Yeah, but it's not the same.
I know, but remember what they say. The grass is always greener on the other side of the fence. You live in the centre and you dream about living where I do. And I sometimes really wish I still lived in the centre.
Yeah?
Of course. Just to be in the middle of everything again. But I'm sure I'd get sick of it.
The thing is, I don't think things used to be so bad. There are so many more cars now than 10 years ago. So many more people, I think.
Yeah.
And life just gets faster and faster. People don't know when to slow down anymore. Living in the centre feels like living at double the speed of the rest of the world.
Maybe. But it's not too different for people who commute in, you know. Everyone hurries onto the train, hurries off, hurries to the office, hurries back home.
Yeah, but in the evening you can relax.
Hardly. Most evenings I just think about all the work I've got to do the next day.
Oh, it can't be that bad.
No, I'm exaggerating. I do manage to relax in the evening.
Me too. We should both stop complaining. I'm sure there are lots of people who'd love to live where we do.
Agreed. Let's go and get that coffee.
Case 1. Miss K, a 15-year-old secondary school student, wants to have plastic surgery to change the shape of her nose. Although no one at her private girls' school has bullied her about it, she feels that peer pressure to look attractive is very strong, and she says the issue is affecting her self-esteem and making her depressed. It is Miss K's ambition to become a corporate lawyer, and she believes that her nose will also affect her career prospects. Her wealthy parents don't believe that her nose is such a serious problem and feel that she should wait until she is at least 21, as she may feel differently about it by then. However, they have said that they will pay for the surgery if doctors agree that it is in their daughter's best interests.
Case 2.
A 6-year-old boy, S, has been diagnosed by doctors with attention deficit disorder, ADHD, and prescribed a new drug which he will probably have to take until he is an adult. The drug is not thought to lead to dependency, but the long-term effects are not fully known. His mother, who is separated from his father and who has custody of their 3 children, is keen to try the drug. She says his problem is badly affecting his life, both at school and at home. He is distracted at school, is already falling behind other children in his schoolwork, and his teachers are unsympathetic. At home, his bad behaviour causes constant stress, and his mother says that the only thing that keeps him calm is playing computer games. His father, who lives 100 kilometres away, is against him taking the drug. He says that his son is just a normal boy who needs to move to a more disciplined school with a calmer working environment, and that he needs to play outside more instead of staying indoors and playing computer games.
Case 3. Dr. Z, a prominent National Health Service specialist, has created a big stir in the media by publicly questioning whether he should treat a patient who is a heavy smoker. The woman, Mrs. X, who is in her early 60s, has a life-threatening illness that requires expensive surgery and medication. She has been a lifelong smoker and says that she cannot give up. Dr. Z says that treating her does not represent value for money for the taxpayer, as she is shortening her life expectancy considerably by smoking. However, opponents of Dr. Z point out that Mrs. X, who is a retired school secretary, was a taxpayer all her working life. Furthermore, her illness is not directly linked to smoking, and she is currently in good enough general health to undergo surgery and treatment. But as the ageing population grows and healthcare gets more and more expensive for the state, the case is causing huge public debate.
Two recent opinion polls have given new life to the debate on animal testing. So, Sasha, what do the polls reveal?
Well, they show that the majority of people feel that medical research on animals is justified in some circumstances. Only around 1 in 5 people believe that it is never acceptable under any circumstances.
Well, that seems quite clear. What else do the polls show?
Well, the problems start when you ask what sorts of experiments are justified. 3/4 of people, for instance, think that experiments on monkeys and other primates should not be allowed. And more than 4 out of 5 people think that experiments which cause severe suffering or pain should be banned. However, just over half the people polled also said that experiments on new medicines should be allowed. The problem, of course, is what if that experiment on a new medicine causes severe pain to the animal?
I see. What do people feel about testing cosmetics on animals?
Well, that's very clear. The vast majority of people, over 90%, are against that.
So, how would you summarise the polls overall?
Generally speaking, it's a mixed picture. But the results certainly show that more and more people are concerned about animal testing.
OK, well, thank you for that brief roundup, Sasha. On to other news where...
Have you read that interview with Taylor Fox in there?
No, I was just having a quick flick through. Why?
Oh, I just thought it was interesting. Did you know she's got 2 adopted kids from Malawi?
I did, yeah. From what I've heard, she couldn't have kids of her own.
No, actually, as I understand it, she'd already had a son with Scott Blake.
She's married to Scott Blake?
Was. They got divorced a while back. She's with Cody Lescott now.
Of course, I was going to say. So how come she split up with Scott Blake? He seems really nice.
That's the image, but it turns out he's a bit of a jerk. He'd been leading a bit of a double life. He was very popular with the ladies, and she decided she just couldn't trust him. That's why they called it a day.
You're joking. He comes across as so clean-cut and pleasant.
Well, apparently not. It seems, how shall I put it, that he likes to spread the love a lot.
Well, that's changed my opinion of him. She's better off without him in that case, then.
Absolutely. You should read the interview. She had quite an interesting upbringing. She just sounds very down to earth.
Conversation 2.
Have you seen Ollie recently?
No, not for ages. Have you?
Yeah, I saw him last week. We went for a drink.
Right. How is he?
Oh, he's good. Really good, actually. You know, he left his job at Buyflix.
No, really? I was told he was doing well there.
He was. But he'd actually been thinking about leaving for a while. Basically, ever since he started going out with Layla.
Who's Layla?
When was the last time you saw him?
It must have been about a year ago. As far as I know, he wasn't seeing anyone then.
Oh, maybe. Well, anyway, she's Finnish. They met on holiday. She lives in Helsinki. They were commuting between here and there more or less every 2 weeks. But in the end, he decided to quit his job and move there.
You're joking.
No. Apparently, she's got a really good job, so they can both afford to live off her salary.
So he's just going to be a house husband then?
Yeah. Well, he said he'd sent CVs to a couple of companies, but if that came to nothing, he was going to retrain as an English teacher.
Really? Well, that's a change for the better. I went to a wedding in Sweden last year. It wasn't so different to weddings I've seen, but the odd thing was, firstly, there was a lot of singing during the reception, which I joined in, even though I'm tone deaf. Then there were lots of speeches. Anyone could make a toast and speak. And when the groom left the room, for whatever reason, male guests would leap up and kiss the bride. Another thing I discovered is that when the couple exchange vows, the person who says "I do" loudest is supposed to be the one who'll wear the trousers in their marriage.
2.
Here in Japan, the second Monday in January is called Seijin no Hi, Coming of Age Day. Everyone who turns 20 that year is invited to a big reception organized by the local authority to mark the fact they're now legally adults. The girls wear traditional Japanese outfits worth thousands of pounds, which is why most girls just hire them for the day. The guys usually wear suits, but some do dress more traditionally too. At the reception, there's a lengthy speech by the local mayor to congratulate them and remind them of their new responsibilities, and small gifts are handed out to everyone. Family and friends usually gather outside the town hall to take photos. Then we go out and party the night away.
3.
People here find death an awkward subject. In Puerto Rico, I think we have a healthier, more open attitude. When someone dies, the funeral company usually preserves the body, so it can be displayed in the coffin. However, recently there's been a trend to dress the bodies and place them in a themed setting, such as sitting on their motorbike. The body's on display at least 2 days, so everybody, friends, family, neighbours, children and adults, can pay their respects and take photos with the body before it is buried. This is all part of celebrating their life, and the photo is an important record of the event. It's part of a person's history, and honouring the dead is very important, which is why we also visit the graves of loved ones every year.
4. I have just had my first baby, Ardit. Family is core to the Hindu faith, so there are several rites connected to birth and children. Right after the birth, the baby is washed and then the father brushes a mixture of honey and butter on the baby's lips. He then whispers special holy words in the baby's right ear as a blessing for his future life. I had quite a difficult labour, but seeing my husband do that was so beautiful. I immediately forgot all the pain and exhaustion. We didn't actually name the baby till 10 days after the birth because a priest consults an astrological chart to find the position of the stars and choose the initials of the name. Later in the year, we'll mark other events like the baby's first trip outside and the first time he has solid food.